the Magpies collection. Previously, I've been showing off some of my collection based on fairy tale aesthetics. But today I wanted to show off this beautiful new pair of shoes before I put them to good use. So we have here a red, dark academia show and tell. These are a pair of American Duchess heels, and I did purchase these with my own money, but I just think they're really gorgeous, so I wanted to give them a little bit of love. I do really love vintage and antique fashion, but I'm not the gentlest on my clothing, so I don't wear any real vintage pieces. But I really like that classic aesthetic, and I pull from a lot of different time periods in my clothing inspiration. I've always wanted a pair of really classic Oxfords, and I've been stalking the American Duchess website for a very long time. These are the Edith heels in a beautiful deep burgundy, and this is one of my favorite colors to wear. So I think they have some incredible styles and variations on their catalog that I would love to own. But to me, this is a really wearable piece and something that I'll actually get a lot of use out of. They are full leather uppers and soles, and they're so soft, and they have that new leather smell. I wish you all could smell it. I really loved this black detailing along the toe cap and the stitching and this beautiful hue. I think it gives it just enough touch of whimsy and moodiness. And I adore this Edwardian swooped heel. I think that sets it apart, and it's such a timeless but also really interesting shape, and I think it's so flattering on the foot. To me, this is like the perfect shoe to go explore an old library, or to go wander along the river in some beautiful old city. If anyone's interested, I am a 7.5 in normal sizing, and that's exactly what I ordered, and it does fit wonderfully. Just a little tight on the back of the heel, but that's to be expected with any shoe that you get brand new. And the wonderful thing about leather is that it does over time mold to the shape of your foot. I also love that it comes with these really lovely burgundy cords that match the laces with this really nice brass detail on the ends. I think that finishes it off so nicely. It looks really sleek. I'll tie these back up. There we go. I also wanted to show one of my vintage little bottles. I use this as a bud vase, and I just think it's so pretty how it catches the light. Hopefully you can see that, bring out some of the amber and honey colors underneath. It's from Taiwan. It says made in Taiwan on the back, but I don't know what it would have been for. It does seem like it had a top at some point before it came to me. And I use it to hold odds and ends, flowers sometimes, but today it is holding some of my wooden teaspoons and some of my silver pieces. These are silver scissors from my grandmother. It says Germany down below, and then sterling with some maker's marks on the handle. And I think they're so whimsical and classic. I don't know why someone would need sterling silver scissors, but maybe that tells you a bit about my grandmother and who she was as a person. She is an avid collector of antiques. Oh, sorry for that. Bit of traffic outside. And I ended up with a lot of her silver pieces because the rest of my family just isn't as interested in silver. But I think this is so darling. It has these lovely little flowers. They're daisies curving up into this big leaves along the back. They're not in the best condition. And I obviously don't use them, but I think they're such a pretty display because the handle, of course, is so lovely. also have here one of the sterling silverware pieces that was passed down to me. Like, this is such a funny little fork, just a little dingle hopper. And I just love all of the detailing. I don't know what this would be for. Wondering if it'd be fruit or some other little delicacy. These cute little heart cut out and this really interesting shape to the tines, like a diamond. Very traditional. Little circles and flowers on the back. It is also marked sterling. Has a few hallmarks, but I'm not as good at dating silver as I am about some of the rest of my collection. I would guess this is early to mid 20th century. It was based on when my grandmother was collecting, but I don't know. But again, I don't use this. I'm not much of a fancy entertainer, but I think it looks so sweet in a little display. I also have some of her old silver table settings. This is a lovely little salt cellar, and I love salt cellars like this. I think they're so cute. It looks like in Beauty and the Beast, he would totter across the table and offer you some salt. Just has a lot of personality. His little feet and his big pot belly. This looks like a grumpy little mouth. I also think they look really beautiful, like a minaret or big domed church, like a Russian church. This little finial top. So I quite like these shapes, and I think they look really nice in a display. This one, I think the pattern originally would have been made so you could have your monogram inscribed into the seal on the front, but this one does not have that, and I don't mind. I don't do much entertaining with silver, but I do like to mix it in with my other decor, as I love how it catches the light, and I love the look of the patina. As with a lot of my antiques, I love that it tells its own story, even when it's a bit banged up. This is the last piece of tableware silver I wanted to show you today. And one of my favorites is, of course, a lovely little napkin ring with this really beautiful bunny and his little tail. This is by Black Star and Frost Gorham. I looked them up, and they are sold or have been sold at a lot of fine retailers for jewelry and silver like Tiffany's. particular style. I found a lot of rabbit napkin holders. They're obviously for Easter or something like that for spring. But this one is so naturalistic and I think rather elegant. It's not very cutesy. And I would love to know when it's from exactly. I would guess as well, early 20th century. But I don't know. I've never been able to find another piece. I wonder if the whole set was all rabbits. Or did we have like a bunny and a dog and a cat? I don't know. It's kind of fun to imagine. But I think it's so whimsical. It's the perfect thing for a Mad Hatter, Alice in Wonderland tea party, isn't it? Just so sweet. I do also, in this old Elgin jewelry box, have a couple of my more delicate pieces of jewelry. I wanted to show you one more piece of silver. This is probably my most special brooch to me. I got this from the flea markets in Paris when I was very young. It's probably about 11 or 12. And if you've never been, there's this essentially a neighborhood that is just full of street market stalls of antiques, and you can find everything there. It's just chock full. It's like a cave of wonders everywhere you look. And even then, at the age of about 11, I loved antiques. So I wanted to pick up something to bring home, and I chose this. It is a brooch in the Art Nouveau style, I guess, around that very early 1900s time period, of this beautiful woman who's being conjured up out of a brazier. We have the smoke curling around, becoming her hair as she dances. And I think it's such an elegant shape. It's almost like a diamond, this really organic flow of the smoke and her hair. At the time, it reminded me a lot of Alphonse Mucha, who's one of my favorite artists. And I just fell in love with it. I can tell it's quite old. It has this very rough, old closure mechanism on the back with a pin that you can pull out to release the long arm of the brooch. It is very delicate, and I have almost lost it before because the pin is not very long, so it can slip up. So I don't actually wear this one out that often because it's just too special to me. It reminds me a lot of those early trips with my family, and I just think it's too beautiful a piece to lose. So she stays safe at home. I have here as well a family piece. I don't wear a lot of real stones because I'd be too worried about that. But this is a real ruby, I believe, not a garnet. And I think this little stick pin is just so elegant. It was given to me as well by my grandmother. I love this almost coffin-shaped, very delicate stone with these beautiful long gold prongs. And let me see if I can get it in the light a bit. Down at the bottom we have the tiniest little diamond, almost imperceptible. But I think it's such a stunning piece for like a tie clip or to put into the knot of your scarf. But again, I'm a little too afraid to wear this one out. So it stays at home where I can keep it safe since it is a family piece. I have it in here with a reproduction Athenian coin, a tetradrachm, or a drachma, with, of course, the Athenian owl. And this is just a reproduction piece from a museum, but I think it's a beautiful example. And I love that I can kind of hold it. It's a great coin for heads or tails. Always lands on heads basically because the back is very heavy. It's a beautiful piece. But I do actually have a necklace of this design. That's my everyday piece in on a toggle chain. I think it's so fun and just a little bit of history. I have today in this jewelry box as well a couple of my mineral collection specimens. This is a really fun piece of argonite. And argonite is known for the really tight clusters of these individual prisms that stick out all over. And I just think it's such a fun, playful specimen. I love how it catches the light in all of these individual planes. I love the color variation as well. This is not a particularly sought after piece because of the coloring. It's pretty dull orange. The more red and crisp and clear and the bigger these prisms, usually the more sought after it is. But I actually like that this one has a lot of green to it. I think it makes it a little more visually interesting to see these clear pieces and these green pieces and some little clusters of brighter orange. just so unique. There's really nothing else that looks quite like it. And I think it's such a great addition to a mineral collection. It's so bright, kind of fun on a shelf, and looks great with smoother or more big, cohesive pieces as well. Then separately, I have here, so we saw a ruby. This is a garnet in its original raw rock medium. I think this piece is so cool. I really like specimens that are more natural. I think it's so evocative and it's so cool to see how this would have been mined out of the earth in this raw medium like this. It's pretty dark. It's almost as dark as like the black on the edge of these shoes. But I really like how you can just catch that glimmer of red. I like a mix in my collection of smooth, polished stones, towers and spears, and then some really raw, natural specimens. I think it makes it more visually interesting to have kind of a variety of different types of stones. Alright. I wanted to show you, as an introduction to this book, one of the things that I collect when I go on travels is little pottery pieces from all of the places I've been to. I think it's so cute to put on my windowsill and have a little memory from all of the places that I've gone. This is a pomegranate toothpick holder, and I love this really ruddy red color and this beautiful glaze. And of course, what's more appropriate than a pomegranate from Granada? So, Granada is one of my bucket list cities. I went there a couple years ago and was really fortunate to be able to go to the Alhambra, which is one of the sites that I've been wanting to see my whole life. It is a beautiful city. It's really lively and fun and walkable, and it sits in the ridges of these beautiful mountains. You can see the snowy peaks far off in the distance. And of course, it's famous for this amazing Moorish palace complex, the Alhambra, which is so magical. When I was there in springtime, there were all of these orange trees blossoming, so you could smell the orange blossoms throughout the old town. And the gardens were so lush, and you could hear, of course, all the trickling of water through the palace complex. So I love to pick up books about places I've been to with illustrations of what they would have looked like then, and stories about them as well. This is the Alhambra by Washington Irving, illustrated by Joseph Benno. I really love this edition. It has this beautiful spine gilded with blackberry bushes, thorny vines, one little mouse. And I really love the illustration work. The Alhambra is a site that has changed a lot over the centuries. The complex grew organically from the different phases of its use, which I think is so fascinating, from the really defensible oldest part of the castle complex to these really sprawling, elaborate gardens and fountained courtyards, from the Moorish use, and even when the Spanish came in and tried to take it as a symbol of their reign as well. It did fall into disuse and kind of went back to nature. So when Washington Irving visited this complex in the early 19th century, it was very wild and overgrown and very evocative, I would say. What's really special about this book to me is that it was purchased in Granada as well in May 14th, 1923. And I visited exactly 100 years later, which is so wonderful to think of. This site that drew people, it drew Irving in the 1800s, it drew this traveler in 1923, and it drew me in 2023. This version is published in 1921, but the original edition was published in 1896, and Irving originally published this in 1829. So very popular. It includes a variety of short stories collected from his time visiting the palace complex, as well as his own musings. It's a bit saccharine and overwrought, but I think that's part of the charm as well. And what I really love are these beautiful illustrations by Joseph Pennell that really capture the feeling of the Alhambra. It has this kind of a hazy, impressionistic quality, like you're viewing it through a pool of water or a dream. But it really captures the feeling of the site up on these incredible ridges, looking down over the rest of the city, as well as the feeling of being there. The palace is known for these beautiful fountains and gardens, and amazing engineering to help carry the water from all of these fountains through these little rivulets in the floors down through the complex. It's incredibly cooling in the Spanish summer heat, and you can hear the tinkle of water throughout the complex. It's really beautiful. Also incredibly bright. Yeah, the beating summer sun of Spain on these incredibly beautiful white walls of stone and gorgeous incredible carvings like lace along the archways and ceilings of the palace. It's just breathtaking and meditative. You could just wander all day. And I feel like these illustrations really capture what it feels like to be there, a little bit out of time, a little bit kind of lost to the beauty, the gardens as well. It shows you a bit of how wild it was back then, how people would bring their animals to graze through the complex. Nowadays, of course, it's very manicured. The gardens are well kept and clean. But I think there's some extra magic of thinking what it would have looked like when Irving got to wander through it. And perhaps when the owner of this book wandered through it as well in the 1920s. And lastly, I wanted to show perhaps one of the most special books to me in my collection, albeit by far not the most valuable and certainly not the most fun. This is actually the book that kicked off my collecting bug for antique books. This is With Fire and Sword by Heinrich Sienkiewicz, which is a Polish book set in the 17th century Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. It's the first of a trilogy, and in Polish, you'll have to forgive me for the pronunciation, but I was first aware of it as Ogniem I Mistrz, With Fire and Sword. And this book is really special to me because I first became aware of the story from the movies in Polish from the 1990s, which my family really loves and we watch for every holiday. They're like my Christmas movie, my Thanksgiving movie, even my 4th of July movie. I loved them almost as much as like Lord of the Rings and all of those classics. The movies follow a trilogy set during a series of conflicts in the 17th century. It was a period of a lot of tumult. You have religious conflict. You have the meeting of a lot of different cultures in the Polish Commonwealth. So you have the Poles, Lithuanians, you have the nobles and the serfs, and the Cossacks, who are more nomadic but very well-known warriors, and kind of an interesting mix of more Western and Eastern culture. You have the Turks and the Tartars, and they all borrow a lot from each other culturally, but also clash a lot culturally. And I just find it a really fascinating look at kind of a people in an identity crisis. civil war, where the Cossacks felt that they were not given the rights entitled to them as other parts of the Commonwealth and the Polish nobility received. So the characters really mirror that struggle. It's kind of like the Polish War and Peace. You have this bigger, overarching, chaotic political struggle, and then you follow the journey of a couple of brave young men and the woman that one of them loves as they mirror this kind of identity struggle and fight to internally maintain their honor and understanding and representation of what it means to be part of Poland at the time. I really love this version by Henry Altmus. Altmus books are known for these really beautiful bindings. This one has, of course, this gorgeous red with a Polish eagle in silver, and the eponymous fire and sword on the spine. Also has really wonderful illustrations throughout by Monsieur de Lutman. This book was originally published in 1898, though it was published earlier in Polish. I'm assuming this version is a little bit younger than that, perhaps turn of the century or so. And you can see here the extent of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth at the time, and our story takes place mostly here in modern-day Ukraine. I loved the original movie series so much that eventually I found out this was a book, and I needed to read it. I needed to know. And I realized I could find an antique copy almost the same price as a modern day translation. And that really started my adventures in collecting antique books, realizing that I could find these and for stories that I really loved or wanted to read more of. I also love vintage and antique illustration styles. Here we have our main character, Jan Shatushki, and his love interest, Helena. I loved seeing the imagery of the book compared to the movie. And some of the things that felt really pulled directly from the book into these movies that I really loved. I also really loved the characters. They're so fun. It's like Three Musketeers, you know, daring adventure. Here's Elena escaping from the villain, who's my favorite character, who I had such a crush on as a kid. Here's Kopo, who's my version of the problematic also in love with Helena. It's a bit of a love triangle. So, this book may not be, here he is, fighting Michael Wachowski, another one of my favorite characters. But this may not be my most valuable book. It's certainly not my most well-known book, or my oldest book. But it's really special to me because it's one of my favorite stories, one of my most interesting historical time periods, and something that I share